January 2nd, 1967, over Fukien Airfield near Hanoi. Forward flight, the second wave of Operation Bolo, engages the enemy. Captain Everett Raspberry, an experienced combat instructor, flies Forward 3. He spots 4 SA-2 surface-to-air missiles hurtling through the clouds at their 4 o'clock. The SA-2 has a top speed of Mach 3.5, over 2,660 miles per hour. This missile can obliterate jets at 60,000 feet. But the Phantoms are carrying the QRC-160 electronic countermeasures pod. The pod, originally mounted on the Phantoms to create a more convincing F-105, now gives Raspberry a lucky break. It jams the enemy radar. The missiles pass to the rear, below the Phantoms, and don't detonate. Meanwhile, the MiGs, now realizing they've been suckered into facing swarms of well-armed F-4 Phantoms, are forced into a fight.
Some of them were more aggressive than others. It was hit and miss. Others seemed to want to hang around and fight. And I think that was the kind we were really looking for, because it was hard to catch these guys.
A MiG is closing on Colonel Chappie James, the Ford leader. Raspberry spots him.
I thought he was coming after our lead. He kept closing too close. So I tried to get the Ford lead to break to the right 3 or 4 times and he wouldn't go, so I got between him and the MiG.
The MiG is coming up from James' 4 o'clock. When James doesn't break right, Raspberry accelerates to intercept the MiG. The MiG pilot overshoots Ford 1 and snaps into a high G left turn to avoid a fight. Raspberry brakes left behind the MiG, but he's pulling too many Gs on his aircraft in order for his missiles to function properly. Raspberry executes a vector roll. Raspberry pulls out of the vector roll on the MiG-6. He's 3,500 feet behind the MiG in a left turn, the perfect position to fire a Sidewinder missile. Raspberry has to make this shot count. He has just one working Sidewinder. He closes in on the MiG's tail.
I followed the guy down. He was heading for the clouds.
The MiG, focused on getting into the safety of the clouds, makes a frantic dash. But just before hitting the low cloud cover, he inexplicably reverses his turn. It's a fatal mistake. Raspberry now has a perfect shot.
I had the tone in the headset for the missile, which told you it was tracking. Squeezed the trigger, and it went like a bullet right in the cockpit with him, and then he blew up. I almost spun in while I was watching him. It was so spectacular. First time I'd ever shot down a MiG. And so I was excited, to say the least.
Ford Flight has scored a kill, the 4th Bolo victory so far, and suffered no losses. Ford Flight exits the target area as the 3rd wave, Rambler Group, streaks in with missiles ready. Old's trap is working spectacularly. MiGs fill the skies. But Rambler Group faces an added danger. More telephone pole-sized SA-2 SAMs streak through the clouds. Rambler is led by Captain John B. Stone, one of the main planners of Operation Bolo.
You got your brain, your heart, your gut, and your hand interconnected. And that's what it takes to pull off the mission. You're going to be scared, you're going to be nervous, you're going to be sweating. Your voice is going to go up a few octaves probably, first time the SAMs come up. But that's what gets the ticker going to make it work.
Stone hears the fight ahead on his radio. Concerned about attacking friendly fighters beyond visual range, Stone radios Olds to get a fix on his position.
I could hear it all going on, and that's when I'd ask, where are you? The response was, go find your own. I thought that was pretty selfish of him at the time, but there's plenty left.
It didn't take Stone long to find his own.
I looked out ahead and I saw 2 MiGs. Later I find out there were 4. I just saw the 2. They were about my 2 o'clock position. I was high on them, maybe 2 to 3 miles out.
Stone drops his fuel tanks. Then he and his wingman break right and go into a hard dive, keeping their eyes on the nearest MiG.
I hollered, go bore sight, which trains my radar to look where my pipper and my windscreen is.
In going bore sight, the pipper, visible on the Phantom's windscreen, acts like a gun sight, allowing the pilot to aim his weapons by eye. Stone puts the pipper at the wing root of the trailing MiG. The radar locks and he fires a Sparrow missile. But it's a dud. The Sparrow, designed to follow the Phantom's radar beam to the target, has major reliability problems in Vietnam's tropical weather.
Since the reliability of the Sparrow was in the range of 10% or so, pilots would typically ripple fire them so that they would hope that one would find its way to the target.
I fired 2 more times. The second one went right to the wing root of the MiG-21 and exploded. And the guy ejected.
Then, Stone and his wingman spot 2 more MiGs, high and above.
They were shiny, bright, shiny, silver ones. So I turned to those 2.
Suddenly, a blur of polished silver shoots between Stone and his wingman.
You know, I just saw it peripherally. Found out later it was a MiG-21 that came through between my number 2 and I, and he was shooting. I didn't even see this. I was glad. I'm sure it would have scared me to death.
Stone gets an urgent radio call.
I hear this voice. It's Rambler 3 said, and it's a MiG on your ass, brake right.
Stone looks to his right and sees nothing, then to his left and sees a MiG 1,200 feet away. Its 30mm cannons blazing right at him. Air Force Captain J.B. Stone, one of the masterminds of Operation Bolo, spots an enemy MiG-21 coming up from behind with cannons blazing.
Tracers were red basketballs about this big, all over my canopy.
Stone brakes hard left to get out of the MiG's crosshairs.
And I hollered nice expletive and broke into him to defeat this turn.
The MiG, going too fast to match Stone's turn, overshoots. Stone seizes the advantage, rolls right, and reverses his turn. In the high G turn, he fights to keep his head up and his eyes on the target. Stone expects to see the MiG right in front of him.
The MiG's not there. I don't see number 2. So I start another turn, and I'm in this hard turn, I light the burners.
Stone's lost sight of his wingman and the enemy MiG, a potentially fatal mistake. He rolls out of the turn and searches the sky. Then he spots his wingman engaging one of the MiGs.
When I broke this way, he couldn't recover, but he did a high G barrel roll, and he saw the ones that I was looking at a few minutes before.
Lawrence Glynn, his wingman, does a perfect barrel roll. He noses up, rolls right, goes inverted, and rolls back down behind the MiG. The move has widened the distance between Glynn and the MiG, allowing him to gain a missile lock. Glynn fires a Sparrow. Philip Combes, flying Rambler 4, goes after 2 more MiGs.
Phil Combes had picked up those other 2 MiGs that I had not seen the first time. And he had a little engagement with them, and he shot down one out of that flight.
Stone finds no targets in sight. Then, SAM missiles rocket up through the low clouds.
I called egress, meaning, let's go, let's get the hell out of here. We got everybody together. It was time to go.
Rambler flight turns back toward home base in Thailand. They've engaged 6 MiGs, obliterating 3. The 4 remaining Bolo flights arrive too late for action. The MiGs have cut and run. The heavy undercast masks their escape.
I found out later that for all the talking with the MiGs and their controllers on the ground told them, get in the clouds. And that's what happened. All the MiGs went into the clouds, and it was all over.
Back at Ubon Air Base, the ground crews eagerly await the Phantom's return.
And those guys on the ground now see the results. And when the canopies come open and people start holding up 1 and 2 fingers indicating MiG kills, the place erupts. It's a party.
Olds and his men have won a huge victory. In just 13 minutes, they downed 7 MiGs.
Operation Bolo shot down 7 MiG-21s, which may not seem very high, but to put it in perspective, the North Vietnamese Air Force only had about 12 to 16 MiG-21s at the time, so they lost about half their MiG-21 force.
It's the highest kill total of any mission in the Vietnam War so far, with no American losses. But the results reach much wider than the destruction of so many of the enemy's prized MiG-21s.
From the wider perspective of the air war as a whole, it forced the North Vietnamese to pull back, regroup, kind of scratch their heads and figure what in the world happened today and how do we prevent that from happening again.
It kind of put a damper on the MiG activities for quite a while. But the main thing I think that Bolo did was it was exhilarating for all fighter pilots that we finally got to do something.
In this rarely seen interview, shortly after the battle, Colonel Olds sums up Operation Bolo.
Deliberately planned fighter sweep went just as we'd hoped. The MiGs came up, the MiGs were aggressive, we tangled, they lost.
Olds receives his 3rd Silver Star. During his tour in Vietnam, Olds downs 3 more MiGs. With a total of 17 kills, 13 in World War II and 4 in Vietnam, he becomes a triple ace, one of the greatest commanders and fighter pilots the Air Force has known.
No 2 engagements, which I really prefer to call them, are the same, ever. You think you got it down pat, but it's always something different. It's always something that will surprise you or demand of you flexibility, innovation.
The training and the teamwork that Olds instilled in his fighter wing turned them into the premier MiG-killing outfit in the Vietnam War, with a wartime total of 38 aerial kills. Olds was promoted to Brigadier General in May 1968 and retired from the Air Force in 1973. Thanks to outspoken combat veterans like Robin Olds, who relentlessly stressed the fundamentals, the Air Force relearned and mastered the art of the dogfight.